So I released this video last week, and just from reading a ton of your guys' responses, there have been a range of different reactions. Most of you were mildly offended by the introduction, but if we move swiftly onwards from that, it's become abundantly clear that skill leveling is one of the most common things that most players struggle with. But fear not, this is exactly where this video comes into play. I've spent roughly 3 to 4 hours planning and preparing this skill leveling guide to hopefully help with your Skyblock progression, so that way you won't be running around in 3/4 Shadow Assassin dealing 10,000 damage a crit, which will allow you to get straight into dungeons as soon as possible. So, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so as you can see, today's video is going to be the long-awaited skill leveling guide. Now, I know there's plenty of these already done on the internet. There's a lot of guides that people have made regarding things like fishing specifically or mining specifically or a bunch of different stuff, but this video is going to be your one-stop shop for everything related to skill average and really just the most efficient ways to level your skills just for leveling skills by themselves, not necessarily having the most maxed out mining setup or the maxed out fishing setup, but it should be enough to get you to a pretty good stage of the game, so that way you can hop into dungeons, do Enderman Slayer, or any of the other stuff that lots of players seek to do. And now, of course, in saying that, I really need to preface at the start of the video that this guide is not perfect. I will miss a couple things, and there will be some things that I could probably elaborate on a little bit better, but I will try my best to keep this as concise and as simple as possible, because I don't really want to overcomplicate things too much for the players who aren't looking for something super specific. If I choose to make any more in-depth guides later on one skill in particular, I will, and until then, you're just gonna have to stick with this one for the time being, and hopefully there'll be enough to answer a lot of your guys' questions. So now that I've got all that information out of the way, I'm just gonna go over how I'm going to structure this video to keep things pretty simple. I'm gonna start by talking about the combat skill, then we'll follow it up with the foraging skill, farming skill, mining skill, then we go fishing, alchemy, and enchanting, and I'm not gonna talk about any of the cosmetic skills or the other skills that just aren't useful, and I'm also not gonna talk about taming, because taming just sort of comes with time, and as long as you're using your pets and just leveling pets throughout all the other skills, you will reach taming 50 one way or another, and it's really just not that difficult. I will have timestamps and chapters in this video so you guys can follow along with all the skills as easily as possible. But for each skill that I'll be covering in today's video, I'm going to cover the gear progression for that specific skill, followed up by how to actually level the skill, and then I'll talk about the further information that you might have in regards to that skill. And I'll go through and do that for all of the skills I'll be talking about in today's video to make it as easy to understand as possible for all of you. So to get things started here, I'm going to talk about the combat skill right off the bat, which is sort of like the big elephant in the room, and the combat skill is one that a lot of people want to level up quite high. Now, to start things off with the gear progression for the combat skill, it is fairly complex, and I actually have 4 videos already on the combat progression, and that should give you some more insight on what weapons and armor you should be buying for both inside and outside of dungeons. However, as for actually leveling the combat skill, to say the least, most of it really just comes with time, and you will level the combat skill passively as long as you just play the game and go through it the way you're supposed to. However, that being said, if you do want to like heavily grind combat and level it up as quick as possible, I suggest that early on you start out with slayers. You can come over here to the crypt and farm some zombies. Although if you're going to be farming zombies, I would suggest you come down to the actual crypts here and you farm the crypt ghouls that do spawn down here, and you want to be doing the highest level Revenant boss that you can possibly do, because zombies do give the most XP other than Enderman Slayer for combat XP, although Enderman Slayer is a lot more end game and not good for the early on stages. Another thing that you can do later on when you do progress through the game is actually what we call floor 6 frag or rose running, and basically what that means is when you rush through floor 6 as quick as possible, open the blood door, clear the blood room, and then kill all of the golems in the boss room, because the golems that do spawn in the boss room actually give you a fairly substantial amount of combat XP. It's really easy to rush through as quick as possible when you have some pretty decent gear, although for the most part I would stick with slayers, because slayers are the easiest to do. They do have sort of the cheapest requirements as well, and working your way up through the game with slayers is a lot easier than going into floor 6 runs or the Enderman Slayer as well. And now lastly, for the further information of the combat skill, I just want to talk about the bestiary right here. So if you didn't already know, the bestiary in Hypixel Skyblock actually has some really nice perks. Now as you can see, I'm bestiary milestone 41, and at bestiary milestone 42 I will unlock 1,000,000 combat XP, and I also get just that extra bit of HP. But one thing that you can go for, which once again this stuff all comes passively and you don't have to actively grind it, is to try and unlock all of the bestiary that you possibly can. If I look at the catacombs, for example, the more mobs that you do kill, the higher you do level up your bestiary kills on all the mobs in here. And the more you play the game and the more you level up your bestiary, the more levels you will unlock, which also results to more combat XP, and it's something to just keep in mind, which will help you out a lot when progressing through the game. And for your next skill in this skill leveling guide, we're going to be covering the foraging skill. Now, the foraging skill's gear progression is as follows. For the early game, you want to get your hands on a jungle axe and an efficiency 5 golden axe, and ideally you want to get some haste potions, and if possible, try to get an ocelot pet, whether it be an epic, a legendary, and on very rare occasions, a rare. Having the jungle axe and the efficiency 5 golden axe will allow you to swap between the two. The jungle axe breaks multiple logs at a time, while the golden axe with a haste potion will insta-mine wood. And when you are early on in the game, you need to try and maximize your setup as much as possible for as cheap as possible, so this is the best you're going to be able to do early on. However, once you start to earn a little bit of money and you sort of reach the mid-game and you have a little bit more coins to play around with, you want to get as many young pieces as possible, ideally the first 3/4 of the set, and then you want to pair it with a pair of farmer's boots. And by this stage, you should have an epic or a legendary ocelot pet, but you can still keep the previous 2 axes that I was talking about. At this stage, I would also recommend you do buy a god pot, but if you aren't able to buy one, that is okay. The haste pots will still work, but it's just really annoying to deal with. Then once you have a little bit more money to work with, ideally you want to be using full young dragon armor with a god pot for the 500% speed, and you want to have a toil tree capitator as your main axe, which removes the need to have a jungle axe and a golden axe. You can buy a tree capitator earlier on in progression if you want to. If you've got the coins for it and it does benefit you well, then please do. The tree capitator will save your life and it is really powerful. And then when you become really sweaty, you got a lot of money to work with and you want to level the foraging skill a lot, you can buy yourself a legendary monkey pet and a legendary ocelot pet, and you can do a really cool trick with the auto pet rules, which lets you swap between the two. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that, but to keep it simple, you can bind your fishing rod interaction to spawn the monkey pet, and then when you break the log and gain foraging XP, the ocelot pet will spawn, boost the XP from the ocelot, and then you can throw your rod once again to spawn the monkey pet to reduce the cooldown of the tree capitator. So now we've covered all of the gear progression that you will need for the foraging skill. How exactly do you level it in the most efficient way possible? Initially, you want to start out with any area that has a lot of trees. Now, as you can see, I'm standing on the hub island, and if you've got a rank, you can find a private lobby pretty easily and farm oak in complete peace. I wouldn't ever suggest to be farming these oak trees for very long, because ideally you want to make your way over to the park, and once you make your way over to the park and get your foraging skill up a little bit, that's where you want to be in the dark thicket and going through it as fast as possible, cutting down the thicker trees, which will give you the most XP per hour. The reason why people run through the dark thicket is because if you couldn't already see, these trees are really thick and they've got a lot of wood to them. When you do buy a tree capitator and you have a little bit more of the higher end gear, it makes it really efficient to just go through and break the trees as fast as possible. Optionally, you can farm birch trees or jungle trees or any of the other trees in the park if you would like, although they aren't as efficient and they don't really earn that much more money anyways. So I wouldn't really suggest that you go and do that, and just stick to the dark thicket if you want as much XP as possible. If you do decide to farm in the dark thicket with a jungle axe and a gold axe, however, the way you would do that is to use your jungle axe when you don't have the cooldown, and then when you're on cooldown for the jungle axe, swap to your golden axe and break the wood as fast as possible, and then swap back to the jungle axe to get the fastest XP gain as possible. And for the further information section of the foraging skill, I just want to preface that this skill is really not as useful as the others. Strength used to be a very valuable skill that did actually play a huge role on the stats of your overall player, but since the strength nerf, it's really not as useful as it used to be, and because foraging doesn't really boost your strength by that much, it is okay to leave it as your lowest skill if you choose to. Although don't leave it too low because it is still somewhat important, and it's good to keep it at around 25 plus. And if you're in the much higher end game section of the game, ideally you want to be above foraging 35. So now that I've covered the foraging skill, now it's time to talk about the farming skill. So when it comes to gear progression, these are the things you should be buying as soon as possible. To start things out in the very early game, you could just go over to the farming merchant and buy a rookie hoe. They're really cheap, and it's very good as a base starting hoe. You also want to pick up either an epic or a legendary rabbit pet. They're both extremely cheap on the auction house and really easy to level up. And you want to try and grab as much armor as possible that does give you some kind of speed. You'll be able to fine tune your speed as much as possible and make your farming a lot more efficient in the later stages of the game. The progression from the rookie hoe, however, is to buy any of the tier 1 hoes or the things like the pumpkin dicer or the mushroom cutter or whatever the other tools are as well. And over time, you will be able to level up this tier 1 hoe into a tier 2 or tier 3 hoe, which does come out as the later and end game tools you'll need for farming. And those will make you the most money and also get you the most XP when you choose to do that. As for the armor and pets you'll need, you really only need to get a pair of farmer's boots for that extra bit of speed. And then eventually you can level them up to a pair of rancher's boots. Rancher's boots let you set your speed cap to whatever you want, which makes them really nice to use, and they're just excellent for farming in general. And you also don't trample crops with them, so I highly suggest picking up one of those as soon as you can. By this time, you should have just kept your legendary rabbit pet. It's still really good and the best one for XP, but if you choose to, you can buy a legendary elephant pet later down the line, as that'll make you more money, and that money will be able to be reinvested into a better farming setup, which inevitably will level up your XP as well. As for how you're supposed to level up this skill, initially you want to start out here on the hub island, just like the foraging skill, and going through and mining all of this wheat. You want to try your best to farm on the days that the Jacob events actually have wheat in them. So as you can see at the time of me recording this, day 12 has carrots, melon, and wheat. And being able to farm during the wheat contest will give you just that extra little bit of money and also a chance at some bronze medals if you're able to do well enough. And over time, you can use the medals that you do get from these farming contests to make some extra bit of money and also level up your gear. But of course, once you have some pretty good money to work with and you're able to actually start setting up farms on your island, you can either invest in a builder's wand or borrow one from a guildmate or a friend or anybody willing to lend you one. And you also want to pick up some Prisma pumps and a basket of seeds, because this will let you build a farm exceptionally quickly. And when you build a farm on your island, you'll be able to farm peacefully, earn a lot of money, earn your XP much quicker. And you definitely need to start setting up farms as soon as possible. However, when it comes to choosing what crop you want to farm to level up your XP, I'll give you guys a very brief rundown over what the most popular crops do and the reason why you should choose them over others. If you want pure XP to do it as fast as possible and all you want is to level your farming, get it out of the way and never touch it again, your best bet is going to be pumpkins, as pumpkins give you the most XP per hit. And when you set up a proper farm for pumpkins, I've heard of some weird 3-block vertical farms that work really well. You will get the most amount of XP as possible and your rate will be really high, although you won't really make much money out of it at all, so that is the downside to pumpkin. Cane, on the other hand, will give you a balance of XP and money. Cane is really good for XP and it's also pretty solid for money, but it doesn't really do both exceptionally well. It is just the all-rounded crop that you can farm. Carrot or potato are less XP than farming sugarcane, but they give you a lot more money because you can craft carrot candies with the carrots and you can make things like hot potato books with the potatoes. And then the best crop for earning money in this game is the netherwort crop, although netherwort doesn't even give you farming XP, so I would never suggest this for skill grinding because you physically can't level up the skill with it. And when it comes to actually farming these crops, once you have built your farms, pick a method of farming that just works for you. Some people like the flying farms where you go sideways and just hold down left click. Other people like just running in a straight line, hitting 1 or 2 crops at a time. I'm not a huge expert on farming because I don't really do it myself, but when I did do some farming, I used the standard 2 crops at once in a straight line. But ultimately, pick what works best for you and go with it until you level up the skill. And then for the further information I want to talk about in regards to farming, sugarcane ideally is the most versatile crop and the one that I would recommend to anybody, because sugarcane can not only be used to earn some good money and some good XP, but if you choose to keep the cane instead of selling it for money, you can actually use the sugarcane on your alchemy skill instead, and in turn you'll effectively be leveling 2 skills at once for no additional cost. So moving on from the farming skill now it's time to talk about the mining skill. Now, to preface things really quickly here, mining is extremely complicated compared to any other skill that I'll be talking about in today's video. Mining actually brings a whole element to Skyblock that is very similar to how Dungeons brings an element to Skyblock, where mining has its own ecosystem and its own different skill tree and leveling system that if you choose to take seriously can be really fun to get into. But if you're just here to level up your skills to build up your skill average, then this is the guide for you, as I will not be covering any of the complicated mining stuff because I'm not really that knowledgeable on it anyways. Needless to say, the gear progression for the mining skill is as follows. At the very start of the game, you want to get yourself a set of goblin armor or glaciate armor. Now, I have been told that when you use the gemstones, even just the very bare bones cheapest ones, that the glaciate armor always beats the goblin armor no matter what stage of the game you're at. Although from my own knowledge, the goblin armor should be used up until mining 25, and once you hit mining 25, you want to swap over to glaciate armor. And when doing so, you want to make sure you also have a legendary silverfish pet, is a regular diamond pickaxe with efficiency 5 and some standard enchants, and also the fractured mithril pickaxe that you can buy from the NPC in the Dwarven Mines. Once you have gotten all the use you've needed from your goblin set or glaciate set and the bare bones tools, the next upgrade you should go for realistically is just any of the other tools that you can afford to pay for. You will be able to unlock a lot of items at the forge when you level your Heart of the Mountain skill tree. But if I had to give you a target pickaxe to go for, you want to try and get a refined titanium pickaxe or anything that's pretty similar. And if you can afford it, any low-end titanium drill that isn't too expensive but does the job nicely. And by this stage of the game, you should also have an epic or a legendary mithril golem pet, because that'll get you the most amount of XP and powder from mithril specifically, which is the ore that you will be mining. The step up from here, however, is going to be the Sorrow armor when you are able to pay for this armor set. You can get any of the more expensive drills if you choose to. And like I said, the tools that you pick do become really complicated, so just get the ones that you're able to afford and that have a higher mining speed. There are other pets in this game like the Bell pet and the Armadillo, and quite frankly, I'm not really sure if they are really worth your time. What I do know for a fact is that the legendary Mithril Golem and the legendary Silverfish are both really good pets to be using, so feel free to stick with those. But once again, you can do your own research when it comes to mining. And then last but not least, when you are maxed out and you want to have just the high-end top tier setup for mining, you can use the Divan's armor set with the Divan's drill and a Scather pet. From what I've been told, this is the top-end, super expensive and really hard to get armor set. And realistically, you shouldn't be using this unless you really enjoy mining and you are end game and have a lot of money to spend, because it's really expensive and just not something that most players will go for achieving. But with the gear progression out of the way, how do you actually level up the skill? To start things off, you want to go down to the deep caverns and go to the very bottom floor as fast as possible. You want to talk to the NPC that lives down there and give him any of the materials that he does ask for, and that'll unlock the Dwarven Mines, which is the gateway to earning mining XP. Once you have unlocked the Dwarven Mines, you want to get any of the tools or armor that I just talked about. And the next goal from here is to get started on the commissions that you do unlock, because commissions give you a fair bit of mining XP, mithril powder, and Heart of the Mountain XP. And these are all things that you will be needing to level up your mining skill and also your efficiency when mining, and it will come into play later down the line. Once you have gotten comfortable with mining, however, and you've learned how to actually do it effectively, this is the stage of the game where you can just choose to mine only mithril if you really want to. You want to target specifically the grey wool, as it is the fastest mithril block to mine, and it will give you the fastest XP possible, which is the most efficient way to level up your mining XP. Although avoid just mining the grey wool blocks if your setup isn't really that good. I would at least suggest reaching around Heart of the Mountain 3 or 4 so you can use some decent drills and probably pick up some Sorrow armor along the way. And once you are comfortable with your mining setup, you don't really have to full sweat mining. You could just choose to mine the grey wool blocks and get your mining XP as quick as possible. The Crystal Hollows does offer some pretty interesting things regarding mining XP and just sort of other content to the game entirely, but it's not really that necessary, and I wouldn't really look into the Crystal Hollows unless you plan on doing some pretty extensive mining. Now that I've covered how to actually level up the skill, the further information that I have for this part of the video is that mining parties are ideal when leveling up your XP, whether you choose to mine in the Crystal Hollows or the Dwarven Mines. When you are able to help each other out with commissions and work together as a team, you can grind through all of your commissions as fast as possible, leveling up your mining XP, leveling up your Heart of the Mountain XP, and just sort of decking out your profile as quick as possible. And now that we have covered everything about the mining skill, it's time to move on to the fishing skill so you can level this one up as well. Once again, for all of the gear progression you'll need for this skill, I will talk about that as follows. To start things off, you want to pick up a 3/4 angler set with a Hydra head and either a challenging rod or winter rod. The pet you want to be using is a rare flying fish, as that is really cheap to pick up. It gives you some pretty decent fishing speed, and you'll at least have something to level up when you level up this skill. Once you're ready for an upgrade, you can go for the 3/4 salmon set with a hydra head and a rod of champions, and by this stage you should have done enough fishing to get a common dolphin at the minimum, but if not, keep your flying fish until you're able to get a common dolphin pet. Now from this part onwards, there isn't really a very set progression when it comes to the fishing skill, and for that let me just quickly explain what I'm trying to say. As you can see here, the diver's armor set gives you plus 2% sea creature chance on all 4 pieces. Now it does have a fishing skill 20 requirement, so you are going to have to wait until you do hit that skill requirement so you are able to use it. But if we look at the full set bonus, the full set bonus doesn't really buff your fishing at all. You really are only looking at the base stat, which is the sea creature chance granted by all the armor pieces. Now if we look at the armor that you should be using before the diver's set, you can see that the salmon armor gives you plus 1.5% sea creature chance, and this goes for all pieces as well. And if we pay close attention to the item ability here, once again the item ability doesn't have anything useful when it comes to fishing. So what I'm trying to say here is that you want to be able to buy as many diver's pieces as possible when you are leveling up your fishing skill. If you mix and match between salmon and diver's armor, you don't have to wait to buy the full set, and you don't have to wait until you have enough money to actually use all of it. Just buy the pieces bit by bit as early as you can, because when you are able to deck out your armor set, you'll be fishing a lot more efficiently. And now that I've talked about how you can mix and match your diver's pieces with your salmon armor, the rod that you want to be using is ideally the Rod of Legends with a rare dolphin pet or better. And then of course, once you are maxed out and you're going for the top tier fishing armor sets, you can get a full shark scale set with the Rod of the Sea fishing rod, and you can buy an optional auger rod if you want to be doing Jerry events. By this stage, you should have a legendary dolphin pet and a legendary squid pet as well, and I'll tell you guys how to use that in a second. So then how do you level this skill? Well, it's actually pretty simple. Early on in the game, you can choose to fish in the park lobby, although if you do decide to fish in a park lobby, you have to pay for rain to actually get squids to spawn, and you do get a pretty good amount of ink and a solid amount of money, but I wouldn't suggest park fishing over the other method called barn fishing. Barn fishing is a lot more of a popular option, where basically what you do is you teleport to the spider's den lobby, and from the spider's den you want to grapple or teleport all the way to the barn island, and you want to fish on the weird aqueduct water thingy that goes around the whole island. And when you fish there by yourself or with a group of people, you can actually cluster up a lot of sea creatures that spawn behind you, and this will allow you to swap to a squid pet and actually kill all the sea creatures while having the squid pet equipped to give you the most XP possible when trying to level this skill. And now with all the information out of the way on how to actually level the fishing skill, the further information that I've got for the fishing skill in general is that the Winter Island or the Jerry's Workshop opens once every Skyblock year, and if you choose to fish on the Jerry Island, you can actually earn a lot more money from the different catches that exist. Even at a lower fishing skill, the Jerry Island is still a very good option. You won't be able to catch yetis until you do have the requirements in order to do so, but even just the accumulation of all the other random items you get on the ice island, you can make a lot more money than just normal barn fishing, and it also gives you some really good XP. Now moving on to the alchemy skill here, the alchemy and the enchanting skill as well are both some really interesting ones because the requirements are not really much, aside from just having a fair bit of coins. If we cover the quote-unquote gear progression for the alchemy skill, realistically all you need is the most expensive alchemy pet that you can find on the auction house, if it is leveled to level 100. So as of the time of me recording this video, there are currently only 3 alchemy pets in the game. These include the jellyfish pet, parrot pet, and also the sheep pet. Now if I quickly just skim through all of the pets right here, the sheep pet on lowest bin right now and legendary for level 1 is 3.2 million coins. Now if we look at the price of the level 1 legendary parrot pet, this is currently going for 15.5-ish million coins, and the jellyfish pet is also going for around 6.7 million coins. Now what I mean by the most expensive at level 100 is what I'm trying to say is you want to take the price of a level 1 version of this pet, and then you want to take the price of a level 100 version of this pet, and then you want to subtract the cost of the level 100 from the level 1, and do this for all 3 of the pets until you figure out the one that gives you the most profit and just buy the one that gives you the most profit. Aside from the pets that you'll be needing, you'll also need a bucket load of enchanted sugarcane, and if you did decide to keep any of the sugarcane that you leveled from your farming skill, this is where it comes into play. Now as for leveling the alchemy skill, it's actually fairly simple. You can opt out for an auto brewer, which a lot of people have already made videos on, and you can find a tutorial pretty easily. Or alternatively, you can just use the standard normal brewing stand setup where you just put a bunch of brewing stands all down at the same time and fill them up the manual way. Now from this point, you want to put 3 bottles of water in every single brewing stand that you have placed down, and then you want to put a nether wart in it so that you can get an awkward potion from all of your water bottles. And then you want to put an enchanted sugarcane to make the speed 5 potion, a regular glowstone dust, and a regular redstone dust. Because believe it or not, when it comes to actually brewing the potions, people will normally tell you to use speed 7s instead of speed 6 pots, but it's actually more cost effective to use just a normal glowstone dust and a normal redstone dust, and brewing some shorter speed 6s because you get the same XP out of it and you don't really get that much more money. And then once you collect all 3 of your potions from every single brewing stand that you have placed down, you want to go through and manually sell every single one to the trade menu or the NPC in the hub, and that way you'll be able to use the coins that you got from the potions that you just brewed to rebuy more materials if you need to. Now when you do collect all of the potions, you do want to make sure you have that alchemy pet that I told you to buy equipped, because the goal with alchemy is to level up these alchemy pets to level 100, and then once you sell them at level 100, you'll make back a lot of money as just profit on the side. It's basically passive income because you were already going to level up the skill anyways, so you may as well level up a pet in the meantime and also get your taming skill up as well. And when it comes to further information regarding the alchemy skill, I do want to preface something that a lot of people don't actually know about, but enchanted fermented spider eyes actually are a lot more cost effective than enchanted sugarcane if you're able to pay for them at 72,401 coins or less per enchanted fermented spider eye. Now right now, if you were to make a buy order or just insta buy the enchanted fermented spider eye, you would not be profiting as much as you would with cane, but sometimes they do dip down to a lot lower than 70,000 coins per e-firm, and if you're able to snag them for a much cheaper price, you will be able to not only sell the potions back for a lot more money and get the same XP, but it's just more cost effective. It's also a lot easier to brew with enchanted fermented eyes because you don't actually need the nether wart when doing so, and it makes things a lot quicker. And now last but not least, the final skill that I'll be talking about in today's video is the enchanting skill. Now when it comes to gear progression for the enchanting skill, there's really nothing super crazy you'll actually need. All you really need is to pick up an experimentation table to actually level the skill effectively. I'll throw up an image of the recipe up on screen now. And you'll also need a couple of grand XP bottles or some Titanics if you do want to go a little bit more expensive. And you can have some bits from the booster cookie as an optional choice. Pets wise, you can pretty much use literally anything that you want to. If you really want to get the most amount of XP possible, I suggest a guardian pet and a legendary or epic one at that. But the beauty about enchanting is that you can actually level up any pet that you really want to very efficiently, even if it's not an enchanting pet, and you'll get so much XP regardless that you don't really need to have a specific pet for this skill. So just pick what works for you and you'll be all fine when it comes to leveling this skill. Now, how do you actually level the enchanting skill? Well, basically, it's really simple. In the experimentation table menu, there are 2 games that you can actually play. The Ultra Sequencer game gets you to match numbers, which I'll talk about a little bit later. And the Chronometron gets you to memorize a repeated pattern, which I'll also talk about just a little bit later. Now, if I were to go and play any of the Ultra Sequencer ones, depending on your enchanting level, you will not have any of these here. You'll most likely have the Supreme Experiment, which is just enchanting 25. But if you see here, it says Super Pairs Reward, Series of 5 plus 1 click, and Series of 7 plus 2 clicks. Now, the higher end one actually has a Series of 9 plus 3 clicks bonus. And I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, or if it's actually bugged, but every single experiment you do, regardless of whether it's the high end one at Enchanting 40 or the low end one at Enchanting 25, they actually all give you the plus 3 bonus if you do reach above 9 clicks. And the Chronometron has a bonus of 3 clicks if you reach above round 12, which means you have to actually reach round 13 before you quit on purpose. Now, as for how you play the Ultra Sequencer game, all you have to do is match each of the numbers that appear on screen and try to click them in the same order that they appeared in. So the first round will give you 1 item to click on. Once you click it, that finishes the round and all is well. Then once you have the first and then the second item, you want to click the one that has no stacks at all. And then when you click on the second item with a stack of 2, that'll finish the second round. You can repeat this and keep on going up until you reach the 10th round. And once you reach the 10th round, you can just fail on purpose, get your 3 clicks, and be be good to go. The Chronometron, however, is a little bit more complicated. It will play a different note block tune depending on what the color of the clay actually is. And this time you have to memorize the pattern in the same order that it gives it to you in. And when you memorize all the patterns and you get past round 12, you'll be rewarded with your +3 bonus clicks. And then when it comes to playing the final game being the super pairs, which is the reason why we played the first and second game, the super pairs is basically just a matching game. All you have to do is uncover a glass pane to give you a specific item, and you want to keep on uncovering as many glass panes as possible, and you want to match the ones that you actually want to keep. Now, as you can see, some of these glass panes are offering me some different levels of enchanting XP, and if you want to go solely for your enchanting XP, you want to go ahead and click all of the XP ones that you can possibly find, but you do have a chance of getting some really good enchantment books and other cool items, so if you want to go for those instead of purely XP, feel free to do so as well. Overall, leveling this skill is not hard at all. This is by far the easiest one, and one that every player should be maxing out within 2 months of playing the game. And as long as you play your experiments every single day and you don't miss too many, you should be able to progress naturally with the enchanting skill and get to enchanting 60 very quickly. But to give some further information, my final thoughts on the enchanting skill, not only can you level up many different pets, even if they're not necessarily enchanting pets, but it's highly advised that you download some kind of Skyblock mod that has the enchanting solvers. I recommend using any U or not enough updates, because it'll make your life so much easier when it comes to the memorization, and you'll be able to get all of the benefits from it much easier with a solver. Now that I've finished covering the enchanting skill, that's gonna quite frankly wrap up everything that I had for today's video. Now, I know this definitely was on the longer side of things, and it was very, very long-winded to talk through all of the different skills in this game, but hopefully it has given you a better rough understanding of being able to skill grind in Hypixel Skyblock, so that way you can fix up your skill average and just get it as high as possible before you jump into dungeons and do some damage. Now, before I do go ahead and end off the video, I just want to say once again that this guide is not perfect and I was bound to miss something. I will see if I do pin any comments that have some valuable information to add onto this video. But aside from that, if you got any further questions or comments about this video, I do stream live over on Twitch every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So if you do want to talk to me when I am live and have some further insight on these things, the links are down in the description below. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up everything that I had for today's video. And as always, take care and peace. No way, bro. Damn, man. I'll take it, dude. I'll take it. Free money, bro. Free money with a chest plate, boys. With a chest plate. No way, no way, no way. Second with a chest plate. Let's go. Let's. Not a hand.